Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 2nd property meeting of the William Penn School District. This evening, we are going to go over some brief updates regarding our facilities master plan in terms of Kerr Field and East Lansdowne and Evans updates. So we're also going to discuss adding some additional classrooms to East Lansdowne. And so I hope that this evening's conversation is going to be fruitful and hope that everyone participates. And with that, I'm going to have Jeff.
Mike, give me 1 second. I'm waiting for Mike. Oh, there was Mike. He's there. I'm sorry. There is Mike. That's what I was waiting for.
To get our slides up so that we can share with everyone. There we go. And then I'm going to pass the baton over to Mike Kelly to talk about our updates over at East Lansdowne and Evans.
Hey.
Good evening, everyone. Wanted to give just a quick update on the progress of both projects. As we mentioned before, we're kind of in a wrap-up mode. We've completed a cost estimate. We have another one coming soon. We're having weekly design meetings with the district every Tuesday to just kind of wrap up some of those final coordination issues. November 2nd is right now, so we're having the review with you guys. And then we'll be going out to bid later next month or early in December. There'll be, as we had spoken with contractors in the past, there will be a walkthrough for all contractors to be able to walk through both buildings. We'll coordinate that at a time after school, after the kids are out. And walk contractors through the building, answer any questions they have. As we mentioned before, everything will be up on our website for bidding purposes. On the 12th of January, so we're giving everybody kind of the Christmas holiday and things for pricing and coming back after the new year. That's when bids are due. So a few days after that, after we kind of collect everything, we'll come back to this committee and review them. There'll be a lot of alternates. So we'll say, here's the price. Here's a few things that were niceties that we thought were some good ideas to include if we came in under budget. Some things that you may consider. We'll review that on the 17th with this committee, and then on the 23rd would be when the board would officially be hiring contractors to move ahead with those projects. We keep talking about the 3 phases of the project: this coming summer of 23, the school year of 23 to 24, and then the 3rd phase, which is the summer of 24. So a lot of, due to some lag times and lead times on equipment, a lot of the mechanical equipment will actually be installed the summer of 2024. Sorry, so go to the next one. So the weekly design meetings are covering a couple of topics, some things about the asbestos removal at Evans, window replacements and ramps at East Lansdowne, and then just, finishes and things like that. In some areas we're replacing the flooring, so we're just kind of going over colors and what the flooring would look like. We're talking about things like cabinetry and casework and things like that. So very much getting down to the kind of the last minute details there. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Mike.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I just wanted to add something to what Mike has said, if I could, Jaya.
Yes, please.
Okay. Just wanted to let board members know that we have, if you will, established a group that is meeting with Mike monthly to provide feedback and input. We want to make sure that the school community, and so that includes, in my opinion, the principal. We have some teachers. We also have parents who meet to look at what's being discussed as a part of our work and as a part of our process. We have also, I believe, and Jan, please correct me if I'm wrong, extended this invitation member who is, I'll just say, assigned or has that school in their purview, if you will. So that's our way of making sure that we do get feedback from those groups. In addition to that, we will be having, between the Thanksgiving break and the winter break, we will be having a general meeting with all staff at both locations, as well as a family meeting or meeting for families to also give them an update on where we are, the progress, and what are some of the next steps. So the purpose of doing that is to make sure that we are including people and communicating along the way, rather than wait until after the fact and then we get complaints or concerns. So I just wanted to make sure that the board is aware of that as well. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you, Dr. Picos. I think those are excellent steps to ensure that our school community and community in general is aware of our efforts. Not everybody can attend our property meeting, but they may be able to attend some of these other components of our way to reach out to the community. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike, for your updates. Look forward to hearing some more next month. Jeff, who's going to take care of the curb?
Well, I still have so I just want to make sure that everyone's aware. As Mike had mentioned before, there will be asbestos removal at Evans. So we will be advertising next week for 3 weeks, starting on November 7th. There will be a pre-bid walkthrough on the 29th, and bids are due back on the 6th. And our goal is, once we review the bids, is to bring them to the property meeting for approval prior to the break. This is just for asbestos. Mike mentioned some other bids for all the general contractors, the big ones, but this is asbestos removal with Evans. So I want to make sure that everyone is aware, in case you see it in the paper or someone asks a question.
Okay, and I don't want to get into too much of the weeds, but where in the building is the asbestos located, and how are we protecting the students?
So all of that, Jeff,
Well,
you
good.
take it or you let me do it. It's
So
up to you.
there's tile, there's stuff in the ceilings, but the asbestos removal will happen this summer when school is out. So once school lets out in June, that's when this asbestos project is set to start. And it'll be certain sections so they can do other work in the building.
Okay, thank you. I see, Ms. Hopkins, you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Yep, thank you. And let me lower it before I forget it. Okay, so I may be out of order, but it just came to my memory to ask this question, only because of, and y'all gonna keep hearing this a lot, attending the conference this week rather. They talked about ESSER funds and us being, not us as in William Penn, but us as the school boards around the state. How are we up to date? Are we on track, or are we lacking anything? I just wanted to know that too, as part of your presentation, please.
When you say on track, I'm going to conclude that you're talking about the spending of the money.
Yes, sir.
We are on track.
Okay.
We have submitted everything we need to submit. We are also providing, I'll just call them financial reports of our spending based upon what the state is requesting from us. So we have no, I'll just say, wiggle room when it comes to those funds. We have accounted for all
Right.
dollars, and we will be providing the board with another update, as we have done throughout this process, in terms of the usage of all of those funds.
Yeah, they were mentioning about there was some school districts that they weren't getting their materials. I can't recall what material. I think it was the actual air conditioning unit itself, because it was still stuck in Japan and all kinds of stuff like that, and they weren't going to meet the deadline. I was just trying to figure out where we and just make sure that I'm keeping that in my memory.
There was an earlier round of ESSER funding that required some of that money to be spent the summer of 23. And so
okay.
that's where there's some concerns about that. The
Okay.
ESSER funding that you guys were eligible for and applied for and received is for the summer of 24. So as
Okay.
Dr. Biko said, we are still on track for
Okay.
meeting all of those requirements.
Thank you. And again, I know I was out of order and it just came to my head and I wanted to make sure I asked that question. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. Bye.
No, it's a great question. I think that, because again, if you don't ask it, someone else will, so it's good.
Right?
The-
And you know, there's so many different deadlines for so many different things. We want to make sure we're on target for all of the various deadlines. That's a great question. Thank you. Mr.
The
Because, Dr. Because you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to also stress, and we had this conversation, I believe it was last week when we met with Mike, and this came up at Evans, just the importance of us ensuring that whatever we do as far as work is concerned over the summer, that we do have I'll just say a hard start date for when teachers return and for when students show up. So one of the things we're trying to do is to avoid any issues on that end, because we don't have any wiggle room as it relates to the building is not ready, we can't let people in, or we can house students at this other location. We don't have that wiggle room. So that's why it's important for us to also make sure that we're following the dates and keeping people informed. And we will provide more information about that probably between the Thanksgiving break and the winter holiday. But I just want to put that out there because whatever work is done over the summer, we have to make sure that we're done in time to support teachers and students in August.
Understood. Thank you.
So I'll jump into Kerrfield. So Mike from Mid-Atlantic wasn't able to be with us tonight. This slide is actually fairly familiar. It's kind of the same slide we had last time. As you see, we're kind of up to where my mouse is with the building architecture. So they're in the process. They're actually in the steps now where they'll be going forward with the township submissions. I signed off on the documents today. So that will be their next step as they progress forward in the Kerrfield project.
Excellent. Excellent.
Can school board directors take a look at that stuff?
I don't see why not.
Right. Yeah,
I just think we should clarify what you mean when you say stuff, just
sorry.
want to make sure everybody.
Sorry, just the architecture and the plan, just rough stuff that others are seeing that are going out. So, this doesn't all hit us at once. If I'm just asking if it's appropriate.
I don't know that it's not appropriate. I would ask that possibly you come in as opposed to having stuff floating around before it's where it's supposed to hit. Is that I think that would be another option.
All right, that's fine. These aren't public documents?
I just before it gets to where it needs to get to.
Oh, got it. All right, got it.
Okay, no problem.
All right. I see. No, go ahead, Jeff.
I'm waiting for you, Jane. I apologize.
No, I have a hand up. Ms. Cook Henry.
My
Yeah.
question was related to the conversation about what's happening at Evans and the time frame over the summer. Just because I know there's programming, lunch is usually served during that time, all of those things that would impact student activity would not occur at Evans over the summer, correct?
That is correct. And that's part of the reason why we want to make sure that we are in front of the communication between the Thanksgiving holiday and the winter break. So those will be some of the things that we will definitely be talking about. It is our goal will still be to, if we are providing, and I know we will be, if we're providing food, then if Evans is not a location, then are we utilizing the ninth grade academy? So we're just looking at all of those options. And so we want to make sure that we're able to provide not only our community with that information, but the board as well. So the board will never get the information after the community. We will communicate with the board first, and then we will have the public sessions with our community members.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I have another hand, Ms. Ivory.
Hello, I had a question. To continue with Ms. Valerie, will the teachers be given the opportunity to maybe hold, if they work the summer program from Evans, are they going to be allowed or afforded an opportunity to go elsewhere? And even the staff that works at Evans, will they be allowed to work elsewhere during the summer if they're not able to work at Evans?
If you're referencing the summer enrichment programs that we normally offer,
Correct.
the staff would follow the students at the location where the program is being offered. We always open the ability to work at those programs. It's based upon your request. So we offer it to every employee in our district, and based upon who expresses interest, that's who gets hired. And so you would have to work where the program is being offered.
And would that also be offered to the food services staff that work out of Evans as well?
We do not manage who works with the food services, but I am sure that Mr. Cobal will do that. And
Okay,
I'll make sure that we should communicate that information as well.
great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Ivory. Any other questions regarding those topics from my board members? All right, any attendees having questions regarding those topics? Let's give them a moment. We do have a hand. Mr. Crocker.
Yes, my name is Scott Crocker. I'm an architect. I work with Mike Kelly. I've had the pleasure of meeting Dr. B. Coates and meeting with Jeff Cuff also for this project. I wanted to go back to the asbestos real quick and let everyone know that the asbestos that is in Evans is not a danger to the children. It's not friable. It's not. It might be something to communicate if the questions come up. But given the nature of the renovations, the effort is being made to abate all of the asbestos in the building, and it won't be a danger. The obvious alternative is to encapsulate it. I just wanted to say that it is currently not a danger, and so protection of the children is and the building occupants is foremost.
Thank you, Mr. Crocker. Any other comments, questions? All right. Seeing none, moving forward. Yep. Somebody spoke. All right. So we are also here to discuss this evening some potential classroom additions to the following locations: East Lansdowne, Bell, and Darby. So we had some conversation, and the administration has recommended that East Lansdowne receive 4 classrooms, Bell receives 8 classrooms, and a school in Darby to receive 4 classrooms, correct, Dr. B. Coates?
Yes.
2 classrooms, I'm sorry, 2 classrooms.
Mhm.
To be, but school in Darby to be determined, but two classrooms will need to be created somewhere. So we're going to discuss the recommendation. I'm going to open the floor to the board members if they have any comments, concerns, and thoughts. Ms. Ivory.
Thank you. I just wanted to share, I wanted to clarify from our previous meetings. I want the classrooms at every building. I know East Lansdowne needs them. I know Bell, as well as the school in Darby. I just want to continue to stress that I would like for us to stay on target as to what we initially told the community in terms of we are completing Kerrfield and doing HVAC and ADA compliance. I believe that it's in our strategic plan, so we have to do the additions. I just feel this is not, I think adding this on as a project before we even begin the first project, I believe we should wait until we get through the first project first to make sure we don't have any hiccups and additional funding challenges. And then once we have moved past that point, that's when we should go to the next phase of whichever it looks like within the strategic plan and the focus forward. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ivory. Does anybody else have any comments, thoughts?
I just, I guess I asked Ms. Ivory a point of clarification. So she is not in favor of adding any classrooms until the initial work is done. Is that correct?
Correct. I think based on the information we share with our communities, I think we should finish that, focus on that first, and then go through the next phase of our plan. Yes.
So in terms of East Lansdowne, with the position of the elevator in the HVAC ADA only plan and the elevator placement in the adding classroom plan, which is different. In the adding classroom plan, the elevator would not have to go to the basement and would be located in a different area structurally. How do you propose to square that circle?
I believe for me, the elevator, you can access the elevator from anywhere in the building. If we are going in the future and adding the classrooms, you will be able to walk to the elevator that will be located in the center of the building. It doesn't mean we don't have access. It's if it goes to the third floor, it's going to go to the third floor of our addition of classrooms as well. So I understand that, you may want it placed in a certain location, but if we're putting it based on our current ADA compliance, I think we should complete that process first to make sure it's all paid for, no challenges, and then we go back to our community and make sure we have a laid out plan of how we're going to add, not just to the one school, but to all of the schools.
So when you say go back to the community, after this project of the additional ADA and HVAC is done in, I believe, ending in 2 years, where would we go back and put classrooms into the timeline? At the completion of the other schools, at the completion of the high school, 5 years, 10 years? Where down the line do you see that?
I think that's where the planning comes in, just like we did the planning for Kerr Field and the ADA and HVAC progress. We would follow that same process of planning it out, having the community discussions, making sure everyone is aware, and then make sure when we say, yes, we need to add these classrooms, one, we have the funding allocated first, and then make sure our community can join in, and also make sure we have all of our T's crossed and I's dotted before we just say, we're just gonna add the classrooms. So I can't tell you where it's gonna land on the plan because it has not been planned out yet. So I cannot tell you exactly if it's gonna be 5, 6, or 10. That's a part of the planning process.
Anyone else have thoughts?
Well, just to be clear, my thought is that we put it on the agenda and we don't table it anymore, and we actually put it to a vote and let the board decide if we're going to go through with Dr. Bicos' recommendations or if we're not going to go through with it.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Ms. Ivory. Any other board members have thoughts, concerns?
I would add one more thought to that.
Sure.
If it's the prerogative of the committee to put each one of these projects individually to a vote based on the proposed timeline of that, I would be open to that. But Bell is what, 2-3 years away from even funding or initial start?
Thank you, Bill.
Correct. So if they want to put it to a vote, I would also not have a problem with putting each one of the schools' classroom additions to an individual vote, either again in the next meeting, or East Lansdowne only in the next meeting, and then Bell as it gets closer to bidding and making a construction schedule, and the same with to be determined later for Darby. But in any event, I do want East Lansdowne on the agenda for an up or down vote in this month.
Thank you, Bill. Any other thoughts from any of the other board of directors? Ms. Hoff?
Thank you. I was wondering if we could get the information on cost of doing the classroom and elevator, doing the project with the classrooms now versus doing the project as originally stated, and then coming back and adding the classrooms, what, that approximate cost would be. So we know sort of what we're talking about.
So let me
Mike,
clarify.
So I'm sorry, Jan.
So I think you're going to probably ask the same question. So you want to know how much it costs right now if we add the additional classrooms,
Correct.
or what it would cost if we had to break ground again in a number of years when it is complete.
Yes.
And I think part of that question has been answered. So, and Mike Kelly, please chime in if I am incorrect. Last week, we sent a communication to the board, and I believe the total project cost that was communicated for East Lansdowne was $4.6 million to add the classrooms. My thinking is that that's a cost for now. And Mike, you can answer the other question about if it happens later, because I don't have any additional information to share with the board in reference to that.
Yeah, I think trying to add that into this project now would stop this project, because anytime you're doing an addition, there's a year's worth of approvals, site planning, and other things that kind of jump into those things. So the decision that was made earlier this year to move ahead with the ESSER fund focused, indoor air quality, ADA compliance focused renovations allowed us to get to this point where we're a few weeks away from bidding those projects. It certainly doesn't preclude you from adding additions anywhere. In fact, some of the moves that we're making at Evans right now, the gas service comes into the building right where the addition would go. There's going to be a new gas service coming in as part of the ESSER project. So we're going to move it to another part of the building to make sure that when the addition happens, we don't have to move it again. So there are some provisions that we're doing now in order to make sure that the addition at Evans is ready to go when that wants to occur. The elevator is part of the ESSER project. It's right next to the stage, which is close to the front door. And it could be in the new addition, but it's perfectly fine where we already have it planned as well. In fact, what's kind of nice is it also provides the ability to get to the stage level. So all of that is moving ahead outside of any of that being stopped. And again, none of that precludes you from jumping in and doing the additions at any of these schools right away, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, or whenever you'd like to do them. Remember though, when you do start a project in any of these instances, there is at least a year of planning and approvals and all those other things from the word go. So in planning, whatever year you want to attach to it, you would say, all right, in a January or in a December, we're going to make the decision to move ahead with job X, so that a year from now we'll be approving the bids, so that spring we can break ground on whatever we're doing. Again, school always wants to start in the end of August, and the ground is usually frozen in January and February. So we try to start construction in the spring, make sure things are done at the end of a summer there.
Thank you.
So if I understand you correctly, that I think that was part of the dilemma, that we had an understanding of what was next. And I understand why the 4 classrooms are back on the table because of the Montgomery report. However, where you are in the process, if those 4 classes are back on the table at this point, it affects your timeline that you're currently operating on.
If you decided to put them into the mix now, we don't have time to get them in and approved at local levels and state levels and all those other things ahead of next month, which essentially is when we're going out to bid. And then that locks us into the ESSER funds, which means we might not be able to spend the ESSER funds associated to that by the summer of 24. So the schedule that we're on and makes sense. Let's do all the things that are required for the ESSER money that was given. And it doesn't preclude you guys from doing anything. 1 addition, 2 additions, 5 additions, the high school project, anything. We're all still in line to do all the other things in the master plan. You guys can choose to focus on the elementary schools first or the high school first, or come up with other options. Everything we're doing now is improving the status of what you have and doesn't preclude you from any of the other steps that we talked about in the feasibility study.
Mike, just to be clear,
Thank you.
we could also, we could be working on East Lansdowne's air quality components, the ESSER, the ADA compliance and the air handling components. But a second project could also be there to do the classroom additions that would be on a separate timeline, may not be tied to this particular timeline. It would just be a separate timeline.
Yes. So if you chose and said, you know what, we want to do those additions, that addition right away, that would be planned throughout the calendar year of 23. We would bid it at the end of 23. They would break ground the summer of 24 as the ESSER fund project is wrapping up. And then, you know, let's say that takes about a year to complete. Those classrooms would be online for the summer of 25.
Right.
So yes, that could happen concurrent if you so choose as well.
We should not tie them because the ESSER funds are already.
Right. That's what's nice with, and we talked about that in February. That's what's nice with nothing we're doing is in the way of anything else you may choose to do. So they're all untied and they're all fine projects. It's just the direction from you guys of when to proceed and which one goes first.
Okay.
And Mike, you're saying that putting the elevator next to the stage versus putting it amongst the classrooms, how it was in the images in December, it doesn't make a difference. They're both acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, either is fine. What's kind of nice with where we're showing it now in the project without the addition is that it's taking up an old stair that just all it does is go from the first floor to the basement, and above there's a closet. So we're taking out a stair you don't need and a closet that the principal's not happy we're taking, but we're going to find some other storage space for it. That links all 3 floors, which the new addition elevator would do as well. But it also links the elevator, which is an advantage to where it is. And it's also a little closer to the front door, which is also an advantage too. Again, we're going to have a new ADA compliant ramp that's going to bring us in right through the front door. And then right down the hall is the elevator, versus if it was in the addition, it would be around the corner and a little bit further away. So again, either are fine. But there's certainly a few advantages with keeping it where we're showing it now.
And the elevator where you're placing it now also gives us stage level access.
Yes.
Okay.
Just real quick, and I apologize because I'm gonna have to leave this meeting in a minute, but I'd like to move that the additions to East Lansdowne be placed on the agenda individually for a full vote before the board to be placed into the current construction schedule.
I'm sorry, Bill, can you say that again?
I'd like to move that the property committee place the East Lansdowne project in the current agenda for the upcoming board meeting for an up or down vote on to place that addition into the current construction schedule.
Okay.
Bill,
I
are you
just,
saying
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jennifer.
by saying current construction schedule, are you saying work the jobs concurrently?
Or if it has to start a few months later, it's obvious that the board has delayed this long enough that there is now an issue which I spoke about over the last several months about delaying this issue in terms of a vote. We could have voted on this last month, up or down, and left it at that. But again, the board continues to delay this and now it is impacting the construction schedule, as I warned previously over the summer. So put it on the agenda, we'll vote it up or down, and we'll see where we land.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear, because I'm not sure. When you say the current schedule, Mike has said that if we put it with the current schedule, it's going to delay what we're doing. So I think
That's
what
correct.
we-
I don't want to do that now, because I don't want to impact
okay.
those things, but if they,
So
if,
we
if,
create a
I
separate.
wanted to prove and put on a construction schedule, whether concurrent or individually.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was clear. Thanks.
We're on the same page. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And
Okay.
excuse me, real quick, Jan, so if we do this, are we making a D1 ABC, D2 ABC? Is that the thought process?
So I think that the East Lansdowne project is most critical right now because of the time sensitivity. Bell and the Darby School are still out too far in advance, that we're still kind of that, you know, we want to agree, we want to vote to put those classrooms in, and we still have time to deal with the budget as well as where they go and how they look. But East Lansdowne, I think, to make it easier, I don't know if it would be easier, and I want the folks who are on here tonight to help me think about, should we parse them out so that East Lansdowne is its own entity, we vote on that, move forward, or put them as a group? I open that to the floor to discuss.
Hi, Jan, it's Wadia.
Yes,
I would suggest, I think we need to probably keep them together. And again, I reiterate, same sentiment. Once it's planned out with the cost and it's well planned out with the architect as to the timeline and things like that, I think it should all be done at the same time. So since we're not starting at a separate time, that way we can start the additions to the classrooms simultaneously as a project.
Okay.
Based on whatever the plan is.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ivory. Anybody else have thoughts?
I'd like them placed separately, please.
All
I
right,
prefer separately.
anyone else?
There's pros and cons to having them both. I mean, having them together and separate. The issue remains, as I see it, and hearing more about it, the timeline for not delaying what we've already agreed on, and potentially when the additions would be projected to begin, specifically at this point in East Lansdowne. I still am not at a place just yet because of additional information. So with all of the schools, so we do have some information on East Lansdowne.
Okay. So just let me clarify this for myself. Regarding keeping them together, we're looking at approving them all as a bunch and seeking the cost as that goes into planning. If we separate them, we can take a look at East Lansdowne first. All the others do not have to be, we do not have to look at them quite yet, because again, that is further down in the planning. We can adjust, we can take some time to think about that. But again, East Lansdowne is one of those where we're already breaking ground. Do we want to circle back and come back later and break ground again, or still be, on site and continue the work and complete the work all at once? I guess that's
So my sense is, and you're putting them together, but from Mike, let me just ask this question. When do you anticipate the HVAC and the ADA compliance work to be completed at East Lansdowne?
At the end of the summer of 24. So
Okay.
students would be coming back end of August or Labor Day weekend or whatever you choose. So that project was done at the end of 24. So if you were starting something else, a new project would be starting just ahead of that, which again is fine, or it could start, whenever you'd like. But the ESSER project would be completed, and the existing building as you know it, with a new ramp out in front, would have all new HVAC, electric, plumbing, windows. All of those things are part of the ESSER project.
And the proposed classrooms would not be completed until 25.
Yes, as if we got in the ground in the spring of 24, you're looking at a little over a year. That's a pretty small addition. So yeah, I would think that could be done by the summer of 25.
Which would then mean that the current project students are going into a renovated school without the classrooms for the 24-25 school year.
Correct.
Students go into a building without the renovated classrooms that year. The following year, 25, for the 25-26 school year, they would enter the same building, but it would have 4 additional classrooms. Correct, Mike? I just want to make sure I'm
Yes.
saying the school year terms.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay.
And so when I hear Mr. Tong talking about circling back and breaking ground twice, it's that way no matter how you slice this pie.
Yeah, and we're not really breaking much
I mean, I
ground.
just
Yes,
wanted to
overall journal.
I just wanted to just clarify that line of thinking.
Yes, again, you'd be fine to, again, start the beginning of the addition project happening at the end of the ESSER project.
Thank you.
May I ask a sort of education question? When is it projected that we will need those classrooms? And do we need those classrooms to reduce overcrowding in another school? Is that one of the issues?
I don't believe it is. In the August 5th update, I had indicated that this is a much larger program. We are not going to realize the 85% utilization until we complete the high school project that then allows the 9th graders to come to that location, which would then allow us to move the middle school or create a new middle school, which would then allow us to move 6th grade out of elementary schools. So we're not going to realize it in the short run because it's dependent upon the timing. And that's why we moved, or that's why we were suggesting to the board to go with the high school plan, because that plan would afford us the opportunity to do the other pieces that are related to the overall master plan. Did that make sense, Jennifer?
Yeah, and I might come back with another question, but I want to look
That's
at
fine.
some data first.
I guess I think the other question that Jen is trying to really get to is, if we do not put these 4 classrooms in, how will that impact the master plan once we have the larger plan realized? When will that affect, how will that affect the elementary school? How will that affect the community without those 4 classrooms if we don't put them in now?
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but those 4 classrooms were never included in the calculation to get to 85% capacity at that specific school. That was an overall estimate of how many classrooms we need. So in Mike's recommendation to us about classrooms, it was just, this is the number of classrooms you need.
Yeah, you said that perfectly. The 9th grade addition at the high school is the big move. Doing additions at any of the elementary schools ahead of that is helping. but it's not solving the big problem. The big problem is ninth grade. Then after the ninth grade building is built on the high school, there are reasons and opportunities to do small additions at some of the other schools. You would absolutely could still use those, but now you're aiding a problem that's a lot less than the severity that you have now. So it's kind of the difference of, you know, putting some fingers in the dam to try to stop a few leaks now, or fixing the dam and then coming back and, you know, adding a few classrooms here or there to just kind of right size a few things. That gives you some other options with some other buildings as well. But the high school ninth grade project is the bigger project, and that's the one that's really immediately alleviates a lot of the overcrowding at every one of your buildings. And then we can kind of go back and kind of pick and choose a few things that may want to expand here or there.
So I think I'm better prepared now, sorry. On the current enrollment report, Ardmore Avenue is at 91%. East Lansdowne is at 83%. We would have to think that Ardmore is approaching overflow. The students in at least my community are split between Ardmore and East Lansdowne. I'm thinking that eventually we're thinking that Ardmore is going to overflow more and will need, you know, offshoot schools. So that's just my question around, you know, would it help us to have those 4 classrooms sooner than later?
Right.
And-
But I also think that Ardmore is at that capacity because we've made a decision to put certain programs in that location.
Correct.
And I think, as I stated on August 5th, we have to look at all of this as a composite and not, in my mind, like one-offs. And so as we continue to look at not only the improvements we're making in the building, we also have to look at enrollment trends. And as we said, we may get more kids that come in. So we may have to look at shifting boundary lines as well as shifting
Right.
programs. So, you know, it's fortunate and it's unfortunate right now that we don't have every single answer, but that's where we are. And so there are variables, unfortunately, that are out there that will impact the utilization at various schools. But I do agree with you. I think we are going to have to look at Ardmore because it is at its capacity, in my mind.
Got it. Thank you.
But you make a very good point, because that's where an addition at, say, Bell Ave suddenly helps Ardmore, because the choice may be to move some of those district support services to Bell Ave now that they have a little bit of room, and that frees up room at Ardmore without even doing anything there. So you can see, as to Dr. Bicos' point, we're really looking at this thing district-wide.
Lots of possibilities.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to add an up or down vote as what was proposed to be on the agenda. Doesn't mean, from my perspective, that those classrooms will never exist. But that up or down vote on this month's agenda suggests that we're not ready for that, where I see it. And so I'm just talking out loud.
Okay,
Can I interject here?
sure.
I guess I would like to know the main factor of concern as to why D1 and D2 couldn't be put on the agenda for our next meeting and voted on. What is it? You know, the big factor that's holding us back, is it a cost, planning, or just what is it? I would like for someone to answer that.
I think you can put it on. It was proposed that it put on. It's going to get on the agenda. And if you're asking opinions as to
Yes.
why one might vote up or down, and it's the conversation that we've been having the past 5 minutes, 10 minutes, where we are looking globally at classroom, the plans for all of our students. And right now, it doesn't appear that it's in our best interest to vote to move forward to do the work in East Lansdowne right now. It doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. But let me try to remember at the meeting. One of the reasons why it was not voted on in the last meeting was we don't know the cost. So I'm asking, is it the cost factor here? Is it planning? Just, you
It's
know.
all of the above,
opinions.
from my perspective, Ms. Luella, it's all of the above.
Correct, Mr. Wellen, you're referring when I've been speaking, everything that was just discussed, I've been saying all along. The planning was not done prior to this. It was something that was not proposed to the community when we originally went around and said what we're working on. And the cost, if we don't have the money, how are we spending dollars? And I made this statement a while back that adding these classrooms was not going to get us to 85% capacity. I had said early on, we need to look at relocating programs out of Ardmore and out of other schools so students could go to their neighborhood schools. I even suggested Walnut Street since we weren't at capacity, so Darby students could go to their neighborhood schools instead of having to travel to another school. So all of these things that we're talking about now and that Mike has spoken on, these are the things that I've been saying. When it was continued to be added on the agenda, I said, we still don't know the cost. So we got the cost, but it doesn't change the fact that we're not going to be at the capacity we need to until we do the high school, move the middle schools, and then we can shift and relocate programming. So that is where I am. And I've always been, I've had the same response each and every time. So those are my concerns.
So now, Dr. Because you had recommended 14 classrooms be added to the district. Where in the timeline do you see those 14 classrooms needed? Will they be needed after the high school moves? Will they be necessary that soon or later? When do we need those 14 classrooms?
I would probably say when every project is probably at its completion. Because in my estimation, the plan takes into account all of those variables happening. Right? So you have the high school, that's done. Then you move out the middle, then you open up the middle school. So we could look at potentially, once you have 2 middle schools, whatever year that is on the plan, and I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, that would then free up some 6th graders out of the elementary schools. So is that the time then maybe to shift? But then that causes us to come back and relook at the timing that the board has already approved. So I don't want to say it should be at this year at this particular time because it's going to impact other variables. That then may mean that you're pushing back some other elementary schools, which would potentially impact some other items. So we would have to look at that probably in conjunction with Mike based upon what the board has currently approved as far as timing.
Okay, Ms. Hoff, you were starting to say something?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So from what I'm hearing, Dr. Because you don't believe that we need those classrooms yet, but as we're working through, those classrooms would be helpful in those places. And once the plan is realized, that those classrooms would be in a position to aid in any kinds of redistricting or reappropriating classrooms and programs.
I would agree with most of what you said. And I say most because initially we're not going to get to the 85%. So until we move and implement the high school piece, that will be the time that we'll start realizing that 85% capacity. But at the same time we're doing that, we're also going to need to be looking at programs. And so the high school work is going to be a heavy lift, a significant lift. And so once that gets off the ground and running and moving, and we can see like a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of, hey, this is going to really open in this year, 9th grade will be out, then what does that look like for the other moves that may happen? All of it is needed. I never want to say that it's not needed, But in terms of meeting the end goal and our target, it's not going to be in the immediate. And when I say the immediate, I'm talking about within the next 3 years.
Okay. But so we have time, but then again, we need to revisit the timeline to insert these classrooms in it so that you have those pieces in place. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's part of it. And I think we also have to look at program requirements. Or program placements, I shouldn't say requirements. And then the unknown is, right, because as soon as people, and I think some of you have stated this, as soon as people start seeing, oh, wow, there are improvements at certain places, this is nice, we may also see an uptick in our enrollment, right? And so that's what we really can't unfortunately project right now, because that's an unknown, right? So if we look at historical data, which is what we typically do when we do enrollment projections, you look at the last 3 to 5 years. Well, that's not really going to be an indicator as to what may happen after the improvements are made.
I'm so glad you said that, Dr. B. Coates, because I was thinking the same thing, that when we are, doing more efficient at our job, we will be noticed and they will come. And add to that a very large possibility of charter school reform in the next 3 years, and willingly, getting a fairly aggressive population back from those schools and welcoming them. So those are all really, really good problems. Thank you.
All right. Again, tonight is not a voting meeting, so we are not going to vote tonight. I do not want anybody to think that we are. However, I hope that the conversation has helped some of us, think through our decisions moving forward. Again, these are all we are all here for our students and the community. We all know that. We understand. Nothing is wrong. Please understand that as well. We are here to be the fiduciary stewards for the district, as well as making sure that all of our students get everything we need. I don't see any hands up. I do have a hand up by the attendees. Miss Mellinson, I'm sorry. You have the floor. Miss Mellinson.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Monique Mellinson, and I am the president for the Home and School Association for East Lansdowne. So I have a couple of our parents on this evening. This is the first time that we've been on one of the board meetings. I did sit in last week with Dr. B. Coates, and I think his name is Mike, the architect that's doing the renovations for the school district. So I did have a question, and I just wanted to clarify before some of our parents get off. As far as the additional classrooms for East Lansdowne and for the other schools as well, none of those additions will be done until the project at the high school starts to get completed to start to move the children around in the school district.
Hi, Ms. Mellison. This is Eric B. Coates. How are you? Thank you for joining us this evening. I would say that that's still to be determined. I think that's part of the discussion that the board is having, because as a part of our discussion tonight, it was stated that the classroom addition at East Lansdowne could happen, and it could be completed in time for the 25-26 school year. But in order for that to happen, the board has to take action and make a vote. So that's part of the discussion tonight that we're currently having. But as of right now, what is scheduled to happen for the 24-25 school year is that ADA compliance will be in place, and the school will have a new HVAC system, which would include heating and air conditioning for the entire building.
Right. So all that was confirmed at the meeting.
Yep.
And we were talking about that briefly about the additions and wasn't 100% sure if they were going to be added after or I guess in between construction and things like that. I was unaware of the different things going on in the district and the capacities of the different schools around ours. So back to the question, with the high school, how soon is the high school project starting so that the shift can happen with the students in the rest of the district?
I don't have that document in front of me. Jeff, can you look at that document fairly quickly and we
Yeah,
can?
give me 1 second. I'll try to look it up.
Sure.
I believe the high school is right after East Lansdowne is completed. We would be going into planning.
I was just trying to give her a year, and I want to say it's like 2028, if I'm not mistaken, on our current facilities plan that's on our website, but we're going to verify that for you in 1 second, ma'am. I don't want to give you incorrect information. Jeff, we can't hear you if you're speaking. Jeff, you're muted.
Sorry, I was talking to myself at the front. Here we go. Okay. Can everyone see this?
Yes, we can see it. Ms. Mellison, this is the timeline that we have on our website. So the Green Avenue building is set to be completed in August of 2027.
Okay.
So you can see, ma'am, that the arrows basically spell out for you when each school's current construction project will be completed, barring any unforeseen circumstances, and also keeping in mind that money does need to be obtained to complete all of these projects. And we do have the funding for Kerr, right? Well, we have funding, I should say, for Kerr, Evans, and East Lansdowne. Those are our current 3 projects that we're working on.
Yeah, right. Okay. So that's still a long way out if you guys were considering to make decisions on the classroom additions after the Green Avenue project is completed. But you guys also said that the planning and the funding for the additions were never brought up. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say it wasn't brought up. We have had questions, and that was what led us to the to help the board understand where we should place the additional classrooms. So when we received the recommendation up front to add additional classrooms, we did not at that specific time identify the where. So as we continue to build out the program, the question came up about where would you add the classrooms? That was recommended or provided to the board in August of this year. But prior to August, the board had already agreed that we would definitely do first ADA compliance and HVAC. Those were the 2 priorities, if you will.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. I understand that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
All right. Anyone else with questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, hearing none, I want to thank everyone this evening for your time. We're just in time so we can go and grab something to eat before game 4, right?
I think that is, yep.
Hey, Jeff, I'm Jan, I'm sorry. You got one more question in the Q&A section.
Oh, I do.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Question hasn't come up yet. It just says wait. So I would take it that they're going to type something in. Is there clarification that's needed in reference to what will be on the agenda for action? Or are we all clear?
So as far as I hear, Dr. B. Coates, from consensus, we're going to place the vote as is on the agenda.
And when we say as is, meaning the same way it was in the previous board. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I'm clear. All right. And I think it was Ms. Stringfield who had her hand up. Is there a way to allow Ms. Stringfield, hopefully that's to ask her question? I saw her on, okay,
No, her mic is not working. She's asking the question online.
online. Gotcha.
From the chart, it says that it would be completed in January. No, it will.
Gotcha. So what's going to be completed at East Lansdowne? Oh, Jeff is typing the answer for you now, but what will be completed are all of the HVAC updates, which is heating and cooling, and the building will be ADA accessible, meaning that there will be a ramp on the front of the building. The building will also have an elevator inside so that people will be able to access all floors of the building, including the stage. So that's a high level view. We will also replace lighting, I believe new plumbing and things of that nature. And I do want to thank the parents for joining us. We will be having an information session between Thanksgiving and the winter break. So we will be making sure that we reach out to you so that you can gain more information. You are an integral part of what we're doing, and we do want to hear your voice. So stay tuned for the information. Some information will come directly from my office, and some information will come directly from the school principal.
Ms. Boykins, did I hear you?
Yeah, just I was trying to unmute my mic when you were asking about any more questions. I just like just from hearing what Mike said and then hearing what hearing what Dr. Becote said, it just seems to me like we are just totally skipping over, you know, how Mike explained that, well, even us making that room, we still would have to focus on the high school in order to free up space. And it's just like, we still keep going back. I mean, I'm not saying that East Lansdowne doesn't need to be done or anything of that nature. I'm just saying, listening to what Dr. Becote is saying and what Mike is saying, it's like, you guys should be starting at the high school first. And because even if we do the work at East Lansdowne, it still is not going to free up the space that we really need. And that's what I'm hearing. And Mr. Tong, it kind of confused me a little bit when you said, well, what I'm hearing, because I also heard what Bill said. I heard he put the motion out, but then I also heard what Dr. Becote said, and then I also heard what Mike said. And I just feel like we're not even we're not talking about those things, and I don't understand why.
Ms. Boykins, what are you specifically referring to? Are you talking about the larger plan in terms of the high school, the high school shift?
Yeah, as Dr. Becote explained, even if we made these moves at East Lansdowne, the type of the capacity with regard to space, it still would not give us what we really need ultimately. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry, I have kids yelling at the school. It would not give us the space that we need ultimately. And I believe, you know, Mike said that as well. Did anyone else hear that, or I'm just?
I think what happens is we've taken in quite a bit of information. We've been reminded of some stuff. So it's a matter of how you've processed what you heard, and that's going to lead to how you vote when we too take a vote on the latter part of this month. It is not like it's been dismissed. I don't think anyone dismissed it. I think it's been an ongoing, if you will, conversation. And then you conclude where you think we should be. You know, that's, you know, while we're here having this conversation. So I think everything was heard tonight. I think some things have been reminded and there's been some new light shed. Some things have become crystallized. So however the motion is, you will just vote your conscience at that point.
Thank you, Ms. Hook-Henry. I think that sums it up really well. You know, there were a lot of components here that we have shared in the past and brought back to remind us. Again, you know, Dr. Becote did say that our major shift to get us to the 85 target is the high school component. But, you know, as well as, you know, East Lansdowne and Evans will look new and shiny, and that may potentially bring students back. And, you know, with the additional classrooms, this may be a potential space to support those new students who may want to enroll. That's a good problem to have, you know, but if we don't have the space, our students would just have to go to the next school within the district. Does that help, Ms. Boykins?
Yes, that helps.
All right. Any other thoughts, concerns before I let us all go?
Go Phillies.
Go Phils. Go Phils.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jan.
Everyone have a great night. Take
Good
care.
night.